Hello and welcome to Toffee TV. We've got two new guys on the sofa today. We've got Steve Carlile over there. Say hello,
How do
Steve.
you do?
Steve is a guy who's quite interested in the stadium construction, right? And particularly with his experience of being a client-side person. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll talk
more
about it
so.
later, but
Yeah.
you basically
And
refer to,
facilities mainly.
yeah, and you refer to
Operation.
yourself sort of as like the landlord, which would be interesting. So, an expert view of where we're at on the stadium construction. Hopefully, quite a few of you know what this guy does. You're a drone pilot, aren't you, Baz? Yeah,
A geek.
a geek. But he's also a shareholder, a member of the Shareholders Association Exec Committee and stuff like that. And he throws this geeky tech stuff up in the air every now and again. So just a little praise, Steve, first, perhaps from you, Steve. How did you two get? Sorry, these guys know each other and they sort of work together. How did you get together? And then we'll
Yeah,
talk about how this man ended
I'll
up
give you
with
the
a drone.
edited version. What sort of happened was, obviously being an Evertonian and seeing the other ground developments failed, I was ultra interested in this one, especially its location, one thing or another. And then what happened was the construction plan was part of the official planning application, but it was hugely complicated. So I decided, because I had the time, because I just retired, to put together a 12-slide PowerPoint presentation, just because I was getting sick of getting asked generally where it was. And I think it was for Toffee TV. I think it was actually meant to send it to our Baz from Toffee. Baz picked it up on the tweet, said, could he have it? And then we started gabbing. So that was it. It was basically a PowerPoint presentation that brought it all together, that simplified it. And then Baz said, oh, do you mind if I use it for this and that? I said, no. And then I said, oh, I pass there most days. And so friends since.
And you've been a bit of a double act on Twitter as a consequence, haven't you?
Yeah, say the least, yeah. Because I pass, like I did say to John, I do pass it most days anyway. We had the tale, which I told you about, on the flight to Copenhagen when we were laughed at by a national podcast, footy podcast, to say there's two Evertonians following a dredger about, which was, that was me lad who was listening to it. I wasn't listening to it, and he said, yeah, even the two Evertonians are listening. So ever since that, and then obviously to come out the ground, things are happening daily. Baz might say, well, what's that in the plan? Because I actually downloaded just about every document for the plan application.
Well, we've had a beer a couple of times.
Yeah,
and you got
there's volumes, and I'll
big,
give
big
you
fat
know.
folder. Yeah.
And the great thing is now there's a lot more people taking interest in it, and I'll somehow get the links to them once this is done and dusted, and and work out a way of how people can get the links, because there is some great information, some great drawings, stuff that we won't want to know about. But
Because there's only real sad anorak types who read everything.
yes,
Yeah.
and I had the time, which was one thing, and we were in lockdown, another, and obviously seen many failures. So it was good to see this literally come out the ground.
So if we substitute sad anorak, who reads everything, for geek, right? Just for the avoidance of doubt, it wasn't these two guys following the dredger.
Yeah.
It was your drone, wasn't it?
Well, no, to be honest, I don't know where Steve downloaded the Marine app. There was a Marine app that was out there, so I managed
I
to...
remember you tweeting about it.
I downloaded
You never
this.
sent the drone up then?
No.
Oh, sorry.
When the construction started, and obviously the infill and such, I downloaded this Marine app, and we were following this dredger called Showway, and then that actual dredger became famous. Then the Echo started
Talking about
it and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the drone stuff. I mean, I was just talking to Baz off camera before. We were talking about how it come about, and basically what it was. As soon as we got the planning permission and we got the keys to the gates, I just went out, paid myself a drone, and decided I'm going to cover this from day one right until completion.
Because you'd never flown a drone
No,
before.
and to be honest, I was actually...
So anyone out there could have done this. It's too late now.
To be honest, I was actually shitting myself when I was flying the drone out over the Mersey. I thought, if this plummets now, I've got no insurance for it and everything. And to be honest, you've got to sit a test as well. You've got to have a license to fly a drone. So I sat the test, got the license, but even so, flying the drone over the Mersey for the first time, it was nerve-wracking. But yeah, I've got some functions on the drone where it takes off from. It will return to home if you lose signal. So you've got that fail-safe. But at the same time, even now when I'm flying it now, when I fly over the Mersey, I still think, oh God, you know, if this goes, you're losing a lot of money there.
So, as a sad anorak myself on occasions, sitting with any technology and the like, so how much did it cost? Is it the same drone? Or
No,
I
I upgraded. I'm going to bit of I got a DJI Mavic. A DJI Mavic 2
geek
to begin with, and then I've upgraded to a Mavic 3, which is a bit more expensive. The first one cost me about £800.
Wow.
And this one's 1,500 quid.
Too much money, Baz.
Yeah, too much money to spend, like, as my missus keeps telling me.
Does she keep reminding you you're not actually making any money from all this drone footage?
She does. And to be fair, because of the following I've got on YouTube now, it's gradually increased from day one. You know, I've got like 2,000 subscribers now. Not as many as Toffee TV, but yeah, hopefully I'll get there one day. Well, like 2,000 subscribers, and it's all based on the views you get. So, and I average between about 60 and 70 pounds.
Oh, so you do make some money then?
Yeah, I make some money from YouTube. Yeah, so not a great deal.
So anyone who's watching, if you don't subscribe, you should.
Subscribe. Make sure you
get more money.
Yeah, I'll get more money, and it'll pay for me drone.
So do you have a plan to, you know, when you fly? I mean, I used to remember it'd be Sundays and you'd be in the Bramley Moor with a pint, saying the weather looks okay.
Yeah,
and you've done it every week, haven't you?
Yeah, I try to do it every week. Obviously, weather dictates because you can't fly in the rain. You know, electrics and water just don't mix. And really, really strong winds, you can't fly in really strong winds. So around the winter time it's a bit difficult. And of course, Everton got involved with us then, the drone flyers. As the interest increased, we had more and more drone flyers. Everton got involved and they contacted us and said to us, look, because we've got these 4 tower cranes up now, we're asking you not to fly over the site. And to be fair to Everton, they were quite good with us. They said you can carry on flying, stick to the perimeter, but they only allowed us to fly on a Sunday.
Right, that's where the Sunday came from.
That's where the Sunday came from, and it was only 2 slots on a Sunday. It was early morning, 7:30, and then it was an evening one. And I work shifts, so there was sometimes I couldn't make the Sunday because I worked 4 days, 4 days on, 4 days off. So I couldn't make certain Sundays. So I got in touch with them. I said, look, it's getting really impossible for me to get out there and get my drone up there. I'm going to try and get out there when I can, and I'm going to fly safely. And I did. And I think the majority of drone flyers do continue to fly safely over the site.
So you're throwing this drone up
and
seeing what's happening, and Steve's sitting with a big folder seeing what should be happening.
Yeah, basically, because
does it bring to life what you see in a plan?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I downloaded was just a very simplified construction plan and just a little paragraph on each. And then you think, oh, there's the full one, and then that's a lot thicker. And so you just start picking your way through. But what sort of become evident was once Everton had, or whoever had said, the client or the contractor, that they weren't putting the webcam up for security reasons, I did ask, I think at the time, I think it was the fans forum, so just get a bit, they just said security. I thought, well, it didn't affect Tottenham in the middle of London, but, you know, I'm not so sure any of the droning thing may have started if we'd have had the webcam. But they made that choice, and that's fine, so that, you know, obviously Baz and a few of the others have picked up on that. So
they must have a static somewhere for a time lapse in the future, surely.
Yeah, they have. Well, yeah, they have got a static.
I've never understood, because what amazed me was I did say to Everton, especially in the early days.
They could have been getting your money, Baz.
When there was a view to be had
yeah.
before the sort of East Elevation went up.
Yeah.
And I met one of the guys who, although he's retired the same time as me, he still works at the tunnels. And he does the tours there. And he said, well, why haven't they got sort of porter cabins down here and giving people basic little talks as to what will happen? Only basic stuff. Because I said, there is a lot of interest. I said, because I even sent a lot of the stuff to friends abroad, even Reds abroad. I said, can you send us that? Just people who were genuinely interested, and a bit nerdy, if you like. But and so I sent it across Australia, Dubai, America. And from there, they were forwarded on. So the interest you could see growing and growing and growing. The problem is we haven't got access to the main product. That's confidential between the client and the contractor.
Detail plan.
The detail of the works. But principally, a lot of the things stay the same. I mean, in
There'll be
my
in
experience.
stages though, won't it?
Yeah, oh, yeah, there are technically there are 12 phases
So
within
they're
the
like
documents.
milestones
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, and what will happen is some will cross over.
Sure.
You know, when as things may speed up one side, and the other thing that was interesting was, because it's a sort of, I'm say new technology. We've seen the BIM, the computerized stuff they've used. Whereas if you were, and it was a great little vid, but it was only 2 or 3 minutes from Everton, which was how they were building it twice. In other words, digitally and then physically. And some of the stuff where it said, well, if you want a price for a job, you can actually just put your bid onto the software, and then it's far easier, less errors. Even the concrete, the steels were coming with the holes for the cable runs.
There's a question there because it seems a bit daft to me anyway, because I'm just an Evertonian in this, like you guys are, right? Both, season ticket holders and everything. But it's like we had world-class pre-planning approval consultation. We've heard very recently, perhaps we can talk about it later, about when the thing's going to be finished and whether we go in at the end, part way through a season or the start of the next season and all that sort of stuff. And no doubt from a consultation point of view, if that's done, it will be done very well. And yet really shallow engagement in between of something that's so important to so many people.
It's not even once in a lifetime, is it?
Yeah.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
And that was what I couldn't really, I don't know whether it was just a call by, nobody will be interested. But I was astonished because, I mean, the amount of times I've met that, from day one, and especially when the four cores started coming above ground level, that it just amazed me. That I just thought, well, how come they haven't got a little presence down here? Just some, even volunteers, like myself, who was retired, who would have been more than willing, as a willing horse, to have a couple of porter cabins in that little car park opposite. And if you've got any questions, I'll get them answered. And just a bit of a link. I didn't have
But I
to
would
go.
have thought, why? Sorry, I'll shut this off in a minute if we sound too negative, but I just think there's a missed opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Lango Rourke must be really proud of the work they're doing at the moment.
It's phenomenal.
Because the innovation they've got into the construction, I mean, it's going to be a case study, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to be
without a
other
doubt,
future builds, not just stadia, but clearly it's going to be a real, go and see how you do it, right?
Yeah.
Difficult sites, difficult conditions because it's on a waterfront,
everything against them,
all that sort of stuff. So I would expect that undoubtedly they'll almost have it in their CV. So they must have content, but just that.
Yeah, it's just been a
shame.
Exactly right. It's a missed opportunity. Everton, Langs, they may well be passing it around the industry. But what I'm saying is, from the Everton side, every time we went down to Bramley-Moore, or if I went with one of the other guys, so we think you'd have a bit more. And then when I went with my colleagues who were even more into the construction, I mean, I was only really very much on the periphery when more in the operational as it was coming towards practical completion in our building. But even they were saying, you think they'd have somebody down here, even if it's just to get questions, and then can we set that up on a little bit of a web page? There was nothing. And I did send a big long email, and another guy I was talking to, he said, oh, we don't really want you asking them type of questions. What the capacity of each stand? What you're going to have to tell it. Somebody's got to know.
I remember adding it up myself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just, it was all stuff that, again, even as it is now, they've sent a lot of the building things to schools, haven't they? They've done an open presentation to schools finally.
Oh, right.
But
I didn't know.
even for guys who were at uni, anything, taking whatever, whether it be a QS degree or actual fully construction degree, the great thing, you've taken all them apprentices on, but you've got to dig for it all.
It's a shame, but the fact that whoever, be it the construction firm or the client or both, chose not to engage and show stuff means we get people like you instead.
To be honest, John, I mean, I was a little bit critical of Everton at the start because we were throwing our drones up and we were obviously covering the build, and it took Everton quite a bit of time to catch up with that.
Because they do it now.
They're doing it now, and they're doing it on a regular basis, and they're doing a really good job of it. But they were playing catch up for a few months before they started doing their own drone footage. And I think ourselves throwing the drones up there and putting the footage out on YouTube and on Twitter, on social media, I think that prompted Everton to do the same, because they thought we're missing out here on a massive audience, because people are really interested in this. And as Steve was saying, I don't think Everton realised how big the interest was in this stadium.
Yeah.
You know,
Not just Evertonians as well.
No,
I would say
no.
that, you know, and that's not likely. That's people who work in the industry, people who've got a just genuine interest in that type of thing. But as I say, one of the guys, and he was like, do you know what, we could go upstairs in Bramley Moor and we could get an engineer over once every 3 months, charge him £2 or a fiver and give it to Everton in the community, and just, you know, you could never seem to get through, you know, you also said the fab, but unless you've got a little bit of a nous about it. It's like if you just said security, I'd have been probing. What just for a, you know, if it's a legit one. But
Let's not go with security. We've got issues with security, as you know. I think the football club generally is cautious. Okay.
Yeah.
The good news story is that this thing is rising out of the dock, just like Dan Meese sort of visualised. Pretty soon, when the external bits are done, it'll look like it's been there forever. I mean, we forget, and I think some of your drone stuff is great, because you go, I think you've done something recently, haven't you? Like it, I think it might have been the club actually. What difference a year makes?
Yeah.
phenomenal.
And we forget how short a time it's physically been in progress. But we do not forget, because we can see it, is the great progress that's being made. Obviously, we've just had a decent winter, but they're using the innovation about off-site fabrications. That's all the stuff the industry will be interested in, isn't it? Bringing it to sites, sticking it up, all that sort of stuff.
That was the main article in one of the main construction magazines.
Well, there you go. And you talk about whether there's an audience. I'm not a construction guy. I don't relate to construction people like you. I don't read all these plans about when is bloody pipes going in, or when's a girder turning up with a hole already drilled in it, so you're just bolting it. You know, it's an assembly exercise as much as a construction exercise. But I'd still be fascinated by it. You know, we all watch those documentaries on TV about the building of this building or this bridge or whatever. So hopefully one of those will come out in the future. But to me, it de-risks it, in construction terms. And so where do you think we are now in the, you know, if you were thinking, well, I've only got the high level plan, where, you know, this question was coming, right? Where perhaps should we be, and where do you think we are, and how optimistic are you around when it's going to be finished?
I mean, the original bill did say 36, 37 months, I think, in the document.
From start
Now, of course,
to end.
but we weren't involved and haven't been involved and not seen anything that may have been, well, hang on a minute, can we agree to 40? We don't know, because we weren't there. Once that planning goes in between the client, and it's up to
So let's do an illustration, sorry, just in broad brush terms, right? So if it was 36, because that's nice and tidy, isn't it? It's, you know, it's years. What would be the first day? When did the clock start?
July 26, wasn't it?
What year?
2001.
Right. So when should it be finished then, if it's 3 years?
Well, it was 3 years. It's July
3 years later.
26,
2024.
4,
Yeah.
4 now.
So there's the optimistic bit, right? And again, because you're the guy, I mean, this guy can show us what's really happening, but if you like, it's almost like you can look at plans, high level ones, granted, say, where should we be up to, right? Where we should be up to is just one of those things. It's affected by weather, it's affected by supply sourcing and all that sort of stuff. But we're told, aren't we, that
We're on schedule.
we're on schedule. So if we're on schedule to finish it in the summer of 2024, why would we think it's actually the end of 2024?
Maybe some.
Does that 3 years not include tests and?
I thought it did, because it does say in the original construction plan, commission and testing.
So the latter things in that 3-year plan, if you like, would be test events and all the things you have to do for safety licensing and all that.
The only thing I can think of, they give themselves a bit more time, and the devil in the detail when everything's been signed is they may have said we'll agree on 35, 37, 38, whatever months.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it must be, because that's what's in the plan, so you think, oh, well, that's what it is. But obviously with the recent statements, but to be honest, again, just from a fan's point of view, I think they've done perfectly the right thing. We spoke about Colin Chong before, and coming out and saying it's a bit too early now to be absolutely finite. I mean, because you look at Tottenham, 3 times they were delayed.
Yeah.
And it all delayed on a system of the fire system.
See,
fell over.
I'm fond of, when we're talking about business stuff, sometimes saying that people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And therefore you do have to express some caution. I mean, we were talking before, Baz, and because we had sausage butties and stuff before we started, right? And I think we all agreed, and your lad's here as well, and he agreed as well. And no doubt Baz and Ned would if they'd heard us, which is it's understandable to talk to the fans and not give the earliest time of arrival, give the last time of arrival. But what do you think about how it's been expressed? Because I think it came across as negative personally, when it could have come across as positive.
Yeah,
leave us alone, lads, until the other side of winter.
Yeah, it was definitely.
Because you fly a thing in the winter, so
yeah,
you know.
It's definitely a cautious approach from Everton's point of view, isn't it? And, and they're sticking to the guns on that one.
I think it's fair enough to be consistent, to be honest.
Yeah, they are. My own personal opinion, I think it's slightly ahead.
Right.
Whether it'll be, I've heard from sources that we're looking earlier than the date that's being mentioned of December 2024.
You see, you keep hearing this other thing, don't we? The back end. Well, when's the back end?
Yeah.
So to be fair, to say what they've
Sorry,
said.
what do you mean by back end? Sorry.
Back end of the.
Back end of the year.
That's the
2024,
term that was used.
I think you said it recently. That could be September.
Well, of course it could, and that's the thing. Now, I fully understand. I think most Evertonians would as well. That until you got into where you are absolutely, pretty much that, and unless there's a last minute glitch during commissioning when that may ever commence, that I personally would have liked to have just heard him say, we'll review in February 24 when the winter's been and gone, because we could have a wild and woolly winter and it could hold all kinds of, for all we know.
Yeah.
We don't know, and it's right to take that approach, but I just thought just a little bit more and said, we'll review the situation and feed back to you by end of Feb 20.
See, I've spoken in the past, and it clearly, because of the various things going on, particularly around the club going into silent running for like 6 months or whatever, and
Still in the bunkers.
until the board decided what they were doing. But prior to that, I had some really good chats with Colin. He was a really good guy, and that's what he'd say privately. He'd say, listen, we can be optimistic, but it's all well and good us saying
We're going then.
we're 3 months ahead, and then something happens that makes us come back to plan, and we get beaten up for being late. Well, no, we're on plan.
Yeah.
And anyone out there who runs a project, because you've got project management background and stuff, you know that things ebb and flow. And so you have what I would call like a critical path.
Yeah.
And those critical path items, which are the real important things, like on the critical path, we'll be putting the roof on, things like that, because that starts getting a bit more watertight. More of your work is just being done indoors, less impacted by the weather, blah, blah, blah. But I'm assuming, there's going to be a crossover point where your drone won't see much other than a very pretty building, but also those people sort of in the know who work in the industry might subconsciously, or even, if they go public, think, hang on a minute, there's now a bit of credibility challenge here between saying it's not going to be ready for 6 months, say, in the last 6 months, when everyone can see that running test events on it. You know what I mean? So we must be getting close to a period when you actually get a date that you think that's now within our control.
Achievable.
And I think what you're saying, I'm just playing the viewer's role, if you like, come February, the construction companies should know the weather is less likely now to be an issue for them, and so they can have a more accurate view when they'll be finished. So let's stop hassling them until February.
I think a good indication will come from Everton themselves around about the December period, because isn't that the time where they put out the prices for the new season tickets?
Yeah.
There's all that to be
could be a good
considered.
indication of where we are, because
it's easy to say we're at Goodison, it's this, we're at Bramley Moor, it's that.
Yeah, but I mean they've got to sort of agree on if we're going to move mid-season, is it going to be structured in a way where that 3 months at Goodison Park and the rest at the Everton Stadium? How are they going to restructure that the way they pay for the way the season tickets are paid for?
It's an interesting one, and again, you talk to people within the club, and I've spoken to people in the club, in and around the commercial or the marketing and teams and stuff like that. And I think we should already have been talking about ticketing and things. Clearly, they quite rightly have focused on the people who are going to pay most, which is to get wet signatures on the bottom of contracts to do with all the fancy hospitality and all that sort of stuff. But it's going to be an emotional event for fans when we leave, and part of that emotion is, where am I going to be?
Yeah.
I sit at the Park End. You sit at the Park End. Where do you sit? Is it
Park End, yeah.
Oh, we're all Park End. Is where the Al Dads
Oh,
in the
yeah,
Park
the
End.
Dars,
The Dars.
Park End
Yeah,
Dars.
yeah, that's us. But we might be saying, well, the equivalent of the Park End in the new stadium is the North Stand. But I want to go in the South Stand because that's where everyone wants to go.
Yeah.
So put the prices up for the North Stand, because it's going to demand is going to exceed supply. It's all those decisions.
It's funny because I've I've asked me lad who went to Sheffield Uni, one of his mates is a Tottenham fan, and obviously they went with 5 games to go, and I do know they were handed a document that said this is what will happen and how. And on the test event, when they let 6,000, the first test event, they only allowed 6,000 in,
Right.
and then they went to a full capacity one. But they were basically put in their equivalent seat in the new ground.
Yeah, and they
So
got
it'd be
stick for
interesting
it, didn't they?
if we've got any contacts through the guys here to see, exactly. Well, that's what I'm led to believe. That's what they done. So my seat, as you say, and yours are in the Park End. Now that doesn't give me a choice to sit by me lad or anything. Still,
Yeah.
it just says you're there.
Yeah.
Now is that And I know, like you mentioned it to Frank McKenna on the last chat I think you'd had with him. He said, "Oh, it's way too early." Well, my thing again, if I've got one criticism, when is it going to be? Just tell us. It's not,
It's never too early.
No.
And I think, I don't know, I think it's a hard one, because we've had many years, if not decades, of very simplistically, and this is not really about stadiums, about the relationship between the fan base and the football club, is there's been either for a while or an emerging mistrust between the two. So let's think of it from the club side, which ultimately is people. Fearful, back to Elston's days, fearful of saying the wrong thing, fearful of saying it'll be ready then and then it isn't and you get beaten up for it. All those sorts of things. So it's almost like they don't feel that they can trust us to trust them to give us some not totally formed ideas, right? If you want to do consultation with the fan base, do consultation around where do you want to sit, right? How many seats do you want together? But the problem with asking those apparently simple questions is you might set an expectation that Baz and his 15 mates are all going to sit together, right? Because you're asking him. But he might not. I've got, me and my missus sit side by side, so you would expect in the new stadium we'll sit side by side. But my granddaughter's over there, the other granddaughter's in the queue. With the following wind, I'll want 4 seats, and I'll want them all together. Well, the mechanism has to be, even if you start with the Tottenham example as well, John, Teresa, they're your 2. And there's your other one, and there's your other one. Now we have to have a mechanism for how you try and get them together. And I know Ped has an idea, which is in the first season at Bramley Moor, we only have the same number of season ticket holders as we have at Goodison. And then at the end of that season, all the season ticket holders get first dibs on where they want to sit. But even that's flawed, because you'll have people on the South Stand who potentially pay top dollar to be in the same seat every single game in that first season, and then get told there's no spec for them because all 32,000 want to go in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. So to my mind, the sooner you start trying to explore what people think they want, because our ideas will change as fans as well. People might suddenly decide, oh, I didn't realise that the bottom 10,000 on that stand were all going to have to stand up. I've changed my mind. I don't want to go in there now. So there's all those sorts of things. But they're the positive stories. And this is what helps the fan base, right? When you get to the bit where we're starting to talk about where we're going to sit, that's when it's real.
Yeah.
Where do you want to sit?
Myself, personally, I want to go in the southeast corner,
Southeast corner.
which is going to be the fan zone.
Yeah.
Towards the home end.
Yeah.
That's where I fancy.
So you're looking behind you, right? Classify the Park End, it's wrong stand, but pretend that's the South Stand. You want to be where the N is up there, don't you?
Yeah.
So you want to be...
Now, whether I get that opportunity or price might dictate.
Or in real life, you want to be in by the church in the current stadium, with the South Stand on your
And
left.
then again, it all comes down to cost, doesn't it? Price,
Well, yeah. I mean, those numbers must all be known, really. You know, you can project them. There may be some bill shock for us as fans, but even my tightest mates know they're going to have to pay more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
without a
goes
doubt.
without saying.
Without a doubt. I can see it going up. My own personal opinion, I think the cheapest ones are going to be between £750 and £800
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, but we'll have a magnificent stadium, and we just need a magnificent team, really.
Yeah.
So how long do you think you're going to be flying drones for then?
Well, my plan is till the end of the completion of the stadium, and then I might look at doing the Goodison Legacy as well. Then.
Oh, okay. Okay, because the completion of the stadium, I mean, Steve, at what point, Steve, will it become he can't actually see anything because all the external stuff's
the
done?
last bit, I think, of the whole
When do you think that might be?
shooting match.
Sorry, mate.
I think it'll be when
He's
that,
more
that
optimistic
last
than
bush
I.
and that last tree is planted.
Oh, eyes for you. Oh,
For
right.
me.
You want the bricks and the granites to
I
go
want
down.
everything, yeah.
And the railway lines back in.
Yeah, yeah,
So the
everything.
public plaza, if I memories it without looking back,
That's the fan zone, isn't
the
it?
landscape, all that stuff is the last bit to be done. So, I mean, the thing with that is it's with, depending on, you know, when they do test events, when do they open the building? Can they open the building with some of that cordoned off, or do they want to wait till the whole shooting matches?
You know what I'm looking forward to? Some drone footage, and mate, if you can convince them to let you do it, it'd be fab. But I want to see almost like an eye level drone in the fan zone and round the tower, and perhaps because when the Shareholder Association got to go and look around the site, we know we're trying to organise another one.
Yeah.
So you're not a member of the association, hurry up, otherwise you won't be on the list. Right, and I stood at the bottom of the south stand. Obviously wasn't much there, just girders and things, but with my own phone I just went like that. Yeah, and the roof wasn't on it, but it was tall then, and then the roof going on adds another 30 or 40 feet or something. But some of those angles, because everything's been looking down, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
it has, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
coming across the dock, to the south stand, and then coming up and perhaps going over, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I suspect they won't let you do that, right? But don't ask, don't get. So please go and ask.
Yeah, yeah.
And just flying around the fan zone, because it's going to be huge.
It is.
It's going to be huge.
I'd say for anybody who's not been, who watches and has not been down, I would suggest they do, and to get an idea of perspective, as you're saying, scale. I'll give the guys who are always very helpful. I don't know whether you've been the Docklands Trail, in the dock, Collingwood Dock next door, but one.
No.
It's gang of volunteers,
That's
and
worth
it's the
doing, is
history
it?
of the docks.
Yeah.
But they built a little scaffolding Gladys Street stand, and they just asked for a little donation.
Is that the thing you can go down? Is it a Wednesday you can go?
Wednesday and a Sunday,
Yeah,
half nine
Wednesdays
till
and
half one.
Sundays.
And it's at Docklands Trail, and I said to Les and Ernie that had mentioned it, so they've had the plug. So it's at Docklands Trail. But to give you an idea, a proper idea, because there's only then the staff car park and then the south stand.
Wow.
So it really is a wow
Monster,
moment.
yeah.
And you can sort of understand with a lot of stuff with Everton, they probably want to hold stuff back for the wow factor.
Yeah.
But like we say, there is a lot of stuff out there, you know, on the links we'll sort out. Because, for example, there, I know someone always says, where's the infrastructure for the buses, somebody said. So infrastructure for what? You know, there's going to be hard road closures around, there's going to be shuttle buses going in, new taxi ranks, limited parking.
And they've done a proper
that's a
piece,
proper
haven't they?
document.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the match day transport document done by McDonald, and I know, because I was
That's
still in our
2020,
place.
so that's 3 years ago.
Yeah, but that's gone in. That
Yeah,
went in as the official addendum.
That's right, yeah.
For the planning. And I know because just before I left, they come into my director's office. Because so I knew it was all underway. And the
Sure.
wind mitigation tests, because we were 13 stories, they come in to do them tests as well. But so there's a lot of stuff out there, but it's just knowing where to
Well, I
to
think
find.
that's good, but I think people like to consume stuff just by chatting.
Yeah.
So I know you've got to get away. So if we wrap up with a couple of things, one is, will you come back again?
Yeah, if you
yeah,
need it,
yeah.
yeah.
Definitely,
The other
yeah.
thing is, if we get an opportunity, people, we'll put some of your drone footage in this if we
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
Right. I know you're talking about trying to put some of your artifacts, if you will, where there can be links to them.
Yeah.
Even
We'll
when
have a
you're
chat.
ready, we'll promote them for
Yeah.
you, which will be good.
It's just that now it will be, because you're now going away from it. Is it going to happen? To it's happening.
Yeah.
Well, how are we going to get the match? And
Absolutely.
People are thinking that nothing's been looked into. Now, for example, all them websites were saying Liverpool Waters, there's a hotel been approved further down, Sandhills Lane.
Yeah.
And again, these are just useful sites. Liverpool Business Daily, Place Northwest, Liverpool Water's website. They're just handy. And if you put the notifications on, some of it's no, and then you go, oh, there's something about Bramley Moor, and that's what's going to happen. You're going to get more and more of it.
Yeah.
And like I say there, buses, taxis, the big one, which again, there's been public consultations. They need to be logging into or getting notifications off Liverpool City for the likes of the car park, because people are saying there's no parking down there. Well, there's a 329 parking space just
Already?
gone in 150 yards away behind the site.
So there's plenty of opportunity to be positive.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
You guys are doing your damnedest to fill the void. We'll put the trail in the notes to this video as well, so they can have their advert. Make sure that they know that you did it.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it there if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Didn't you want to discuss about opinions on when we should move in?
Oh,
mid-season.
well, yeah, this is all the formal bit. Yes, no, you're right. Let's finish with the pseudo-provocative bit about
shouldn't we?
Where you stand. I'll set the scenario.
Go on.
The stadium is not completely finished and ready to use post-test events and all those sorts of things for the start of season 24-25, right? So I know what your answer is going to be, so I'll go with you first and Steve can think of this. When would you move in?
I would move in as soon as we get them keys, we get the go-ahead from Lang, we've done all the test events, and get in there. Because if it's sitting there, just say for instance, if it's finished, worst case in my opinion, December 24, and we have to wait until August 25 before we play our first game in there, and it's sitting there gathering dust for nearly 8 months, doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make
Get
sense.
in there as soon as possible, and if we need to do our big goodbyes to Goodison Park, the grand old lady, we can do that anytime whatsoever.
I did like your idea that if we do it other than with a live Premier League game, there would be no opposition fans there.
Exactly.
It'd be another 3,500 Everton fans in the
allowed
building.
to go.
Where are you at on this, Steve?
Well, my whole thing when it first was moot, or Colin gave the statement, Colin John gave the statement the other week, was if you do it, you know, the big thing that's going to happen, obviously, in the next, we hope to think in the next month or so, is a change of direction in the board, literally, with what probably will be a new chief exec. And a lot, I mean, I say there's no emotive right or wrong with this decision. You know, it is opinions only. My thing, I done a quick, simple maths test, for example, and every game Everton are in there just on £50 a ticket is just on 700 grand. That's without any hospitality, any bar takes, any revenue. So purely that alone, and this thing, if we can't, Tottenham moved in with 5 games to go and would have gone in earlier only for their electricals. I mean, if it's not safe to go in, we can't go in. If it's ready, and things like, I think what I sort of, a lot of people were worried about, or that people have said to me, well, what about Everton? Well, the migration team should be in place now, and looking at both scenarios. Because if I was the new chief executive and may have put another 175 million into Everton, I don't want the acting chief exec to say to me, we're not going in for emotional reasons, because I'd want a hard, fast business case as to this is why we are, or this is why we're not.
Come on, Steve. That's a great sitting on the sitting on the fence. Go as soon as.
Go as speed. Make sure you're obviously prepared, and that I think that's the thing. As soon as you say, they go, oh, that's Everton. I said, but it mightn't be Everton. Yeah. It might be an Everton leading it, but they can just, you know, we're not the first because we know about Tottenham. Yeah. But there may be others.
Yeah, indeed. And
what's your take?
I'm not going to sit on the fence at all, right? I see no logical reasons why we wouldn't go into a brand spanking new stadium that one hopes is going to minimally double our match day income, and why we would sit leaving it empty. And to give due respect to Colin, and we will finish like this, otherwise you will miss your appointment. Give due respect to Colin, he made it clear or whoever wrote the statement anyway, made it clear that it won't be an emotional decision. Therefore, it'll be the things you said. It's truly objective.
Because that's what you'd want if you the new.
And if it's truly objective, get in it as soon as it's ready.
Yeah. And if it's not, it's not.
And if it's not, it's not. So with that, thanks for watching. All the things we said about will be in the notes afterwards. Be really interested with your comments about where you stand on this. Go as soon as it's ready versus going at the start of a season, i.e. the next season after it's ready. Of course, all this could be fixed by just making sure it's physically ready for the start of 24-25. And you never know. Thanks a lot and take care.